Maybe we've been unpacking your relationship with your sister for the very first time. Or maybe I'm not really your therapist and you're just here to get my take on these Reddit posts. Am I overreacting for being upset that my 30 female mother-in-law, 65 female, and my husband, 33 male, made a huge decision without me? For clarification, I am beyond angry with both of them. I know they both had good intentions, but my thought process is currently, how dare you? And I need to know if I'm being unreasonable or if I am justified before I approach a conversation about it. For context, my husband is very nonsensical, very hardworking provider type man. I wonder if she meant no nonsense. I don't know if she meant nonsensical. He is stubborn and will not do anything he doesn't want to. So it's not like he was trying to please his mom. His mom is very blunt and in your face honest. Neither of them are manipulative or conniving in any way, and they're very good people. I have an amazing relationship with both of his parents, and this is so out of character for them. I know they have good intentions, they just did this all kind of backwards. As for myself, I am anxious and easily stressed. I've lived a hard life and I've had a lot of choices taken from me in childhood and now need to be included in decisions, and I need to feel like it's equal in order for me to be okay. With that being said, I am also very honest and blunt and in your face. I am not submissive by any means and do not shy away from confrontation. All right, we haven't really gotten into the event that upset her so much, but I'm really glad to hear that she can keep in mind the history of these relationships, the foundation that this is happening on. And that makes a huge difference. When someone does something disrespectful, it matters whether that's happening on top of a whole pattern of them doing that repeatedly, as opposed to being something really out of the ordinary. I am currently not in a stable work environment. Job loss seems to be just around the corner. If you stay up to date with the news, then you know what I mean, but I have to be careful what I say in regard to it. With that being said, our lease on our rental is coming up soon, and we were wanting to buy a house, but it just seems to not be the time. We were looking at other rentals, and his parents bought a rental house and asked if we wanted to rent it. His mom messaged me about it first, and I said that I didn't think it was a good idea. Later that day, I'm assuming, but I have no confirmation on the timeline of this, she called my husband and they both agreed that we would rent the house. He messaged me prior to agreeing with her, and I again expressed that I didn't think it would be a good idea due to current circumstances. I didn't outright say no. I did leave it up for debate, but I said that I didn't think it was a good idea. Well, after they both asked me, they went around me and agreed that we would rent it. My husband didn't tell me that this happened until a couple days later when he dropped it casually to me and said, "I know you said no, but that was silly." Oh my gosh. I am fuming, raging, and shaking. I want to revert back to lashing out, but I know that I cannot. It has been 2 weeks and I have yet to get to a point where I can communicate healthily, but it needs to be addressed, so I am going to try my very best tonight. Am I overreacting? I feel like I was told, "You silly little girl, let the adults make the decisions. Just sit down and be a submissive wife." Obviously, that's not what was said, nor what he meant, and I know they had good intentions, but I am so angry. I'm finding it hard to focus on that. Am I overreacting for thinking it's absolutely insane to bypass me, leave me out of the conversation, and take my choice away entirely? No, that is absolutely insane. That is such a bad idea to do. If OP's husband thought that they really should rent it, he should have kept having that conversation with her before agreeing to it. I don't think that would feel good to most people to be totally cut out of such a big decision. In addition, how can I approach this in a way in which I won't destroy my relationship? Because at this point, I'm feeling vindictive and petty, and I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I'm also not entirely sure if I can bite my tongue once I let the dam loose. TLDR, husband and mother-in-law excluded me from a major life decision after I objected with valid concerns and made a decision to do it anyways. They had good intentions, but it's disrespectful nonetheless. How can I approach the situation in a healthy way, and am I overreacting for being this angry? I don't think it's overreacting. It already wouldn't have been great if they had had that conversation without either of them ever talking to you. But the fact that they spoke to you about it first and you said no, and then they decided to go ahead with it is blowing my mind a little. I would want to know what OP's reasons were for not wanting to do this rental deal. Regardless, she clearly expressed that she didn't think it was a good idea, and that should be enough in and of itself. But If maybe OP was saying, I don't think we can afford that, and then her husband and mother-in-law work out some kind of a deal so that they can afford it, I could imagine that being a reason for the oversight. Let's see what the comments say. Sounds like a conversation must be had. You are a partnership, and with that, decisions should be agreed upon, or at the very least discussed. Is renting your mother-in-law's place cheaper? OP says it's more expensive, which was a lot of my concern. With potentially losing your job soon, I wouldn't be happy with his decision to rent something more expensive. I think ultimately you should speak with him and really see where his head was at. But also he needs to understand that you need to be included in life decisions. OP said, that is the biggest thing for me. I may lose my job soon, and taking an increase in rent, regardless of whether it's with his parents or not, is not a good decision. I have been independent since I was 15. If I lose my job, I can't expect anybody to help float us. I've already been looking to get out prior to losing my job, but the job market isn't great and I make good money, so most jobs in my area would be a huge pay cut. It's better than nothing, but would come with lifestyle changes for sure. I know they both have good intentions of it's better to be renting from them rather than a major corporation since they're family. But also, I need to be privy to that conversation. I didn't outright say no. I said that it wasn't a good idea and left it up for discussion, but they decided to have the discussion and make the decision without me, feeling very much like a child. I could definitely see there being some benefit to renting from a family member where they might be able to work with you if you do lose your job versus some big private company that's going to keep raising your rent. And it sounds like OP might have been open to having those discussions, but they didn't even have the discussions with her. I want to know how OP found out that they had come to that decision. Like, how definite was it? Did her husband sign a lease or something already? How does she know that they had decided to definitely do it? Also, as much as people think renting from family is great, the reality is it's not. It often sours relationships as parents sometimes overstep and go, this is our rental, so you need to do XYZ because you're our children. Having in-laws as landlords often doesn't work because they think they can overstep since it's their own children renting, not overreacting. That is a good point. Depending on who these in-laws are and the type of relationship you have with them, that can make a huge difference. A home should always be agreed upon. You can still tell him you don't want to and ask him to look at other options with you. As where it may seem silly to him, it is not to you. He might not realize your point of view. Just be an adult and sit him down. Be like, hey, I get that you think this is a good idea, but I do not, and lay out why you think that. I do feel like you taking this to feeling vindictive and petty is a little wild, but to each their own. I feel like your intro already says that he doesn't treat you like you should be submissive and he knows your personality, unless there is something else. And OP says he does not. He is an amazing partner outside of this, and I know for a fact that he has made this decision to take the stress off, but it is inadvertently adding more and making things harder for me. I have an amazing marriage. This is the first major issue we've had, and we've been together for many years. He knows me very well, which is why I know he was trying to help, haha. I have a tendency to take things too far sometimes. The pettiness is ridiculous at times. He's never been on the receiving end of it, and I'm trying to avoid him ever being on the receiving end. When I get hurt, my initial thought is to lash out back. I'm self-aware enough to know this, and that's why I wanted second opinions on whether I was justified and what was too much. Thank you for your input. I feel like this just reinforces the idea that maybe renting from his parents is not a bad idea. It sounds like OP's used to being very independent, not used to having the support of family, and that can make it feel really jarring and uncomfortable when it appears. But the fact that she's saying she's always had a really great relationship with her husband and her in-laws makes it sound like, honestly, there's no reason not to trust them and not to trust that they would be able to give you a helping hand during these difficult times. If you do lose your job, for example, who is going to be able to give you a break in rent? It's much more likely that your in-laws would be able to versus whatever other random landlord. And yeah, I think the fact that you've never experienced your husband treating you like a submissive wife means that you should take that part right out of what you're frustrated about. This was short-sighted and disrespectful, but it wasn't that. It wasn't your husband thinking that you are a submissive wife. It's just him thinking that something is a really good idea and not going through all the steps properly to communicate with you about it. Am I overreacting for snapping at my boyfriend's mom after she mocked my career choice? I am 26 female and I've been dating my boyfriend, 28 male, for about 2 years. Things are mostly good, except his mom. She's very polite on the surface, but loves to make these little comments that feel like compliments until you think about them for a second. This sounds like it's going to be more of the very stereotypical mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship. For whatever reason, it is so common for mothers to struggle with thinking that their son's partner is good enough. So let's see how that manifests itself in this story, huh? I am in nursing school and I work as a CNA while I finish. I am really proud of this. It took me a long time to figure out what I want to do. I am paying for most of it myself, and I genuinely love patient care. My boyfriend has always said he is proud of me too. His mom, on the other hand, has opinions. She is very big on status and prestige. She loves to talk about how my boyfriend's sister is an attorney and how hard law school was, how impressive it is, etc. Cool, great for her. But whenever my career comes up, his mom makes these little digs. Examples. Oh, nursing is such a sweet job. You must be very nurturing. I could never deal with bedpans all day. Bless you. At least you'll always have a job. Hospitals are always hiring. See, none of those sound that bad to me. They almost sound like they could have been innocent, but that is the tricky thing. That is the way people subtly play mind games. Last weekend, we were at a family dinner and somebody asked me how school was going. Before I could even answer, his mom laughed and said, well, it's not exactly rocket science, but I'm sure it keeps her busy. I kind of froze, and then I said something like, it's actually pretty intense and competitive, but yeah, I stay busy. She rolled her eyes and said, I just think it's funny how girls these days aim so low when they have potential. Wow. See, there it is. If there was any question before that she was being malicious with those little comments, that was cleared up right there. Oh my gosh. Not only is your job the way that you make your living your own business, but also what a reminder of how relative everything is. Because I feel like in my world where I'm from, nursing is considered a perfectly prestigious job. It is considered grueling and difficult and honorable and all the things. It's just kind of funny because that's not usually the job that I hear talked down on. But apparently, if you're not a lawyer, then you're wasting your potential. That is when I snapped. I told her calmly but very directly that nursing is not aiming low, that it is a licensed medical profession, and that it is weird and rude to keep belittling somebody who is working hard at a career that helps people. I also said that if she keeps making comments like that, I will stop coming to family events. Yes, I'm so glad that you said that. Maybe there's something we haven't gotten to yet, but I wouldn't even call that snapping at her. That is being very direct, which by the way is what mother-in-law dynamics like this often need, because those kind of dynamics can thrive on the fact that the daughter-in-law often feels like she can't speak up for herself, can't defend herself, because what are you going to get into a conflict with your partner's mother? Nobody wants to do that, but often it takes something like this being very direct and just saying, hey, what you're doing is rude and I don't appreciate it, to finally get the point across. The table went silent. My boyfriend's dad suddenly needed more water. His sister stared at her plate. His mom looked shocked and said I was being overly sensitive and disrespectful in her home. On the drive home, my boyfriend said he understands why I was upset, but thinks I could have handled it better and that his mom is just old-fashioned. Now I am second-guessing myself. I do not think standing up for myself is overreacting, but maybe threatening to stop coming to family events was too much. So am I overreacting? I mean, it's definitely a very strong boundary. You don't necessarily have to start off that strong. You could have just said the first part and then brought up not coming to the family events if the behavior continued. I also wonder if OP could express more to her boyfriend how upsetting this has been and how much she's struggling with being polite to his mother because of his mother's behavior. Because part of that classic dynamic also often includes the son feeling like stuck in the middle and seeing things in a really skewed way to still be able to see his mother's behavior as acceptable and reasonable. It's like a natural cognitive defense when these two important people in his life have tension, but it does need to kind of be broken down a little because it's important that his mom's respecting his girlfriend or wife. That's not old-fashioned. It's completely rude. You apparently also have a boyfriend problem. Ugh. Yeah, old-fashioned would include being polite to guests. That's manners 101. And would she diminish the profession when she needs medical care? I just lost both my parents a month apart. The nurses were incredible and kind and compassionate. Thank you for going into this career. Exactly. Wait until she's in the hospital for something and says these things to the nurses there. I hope they let her sit in her shit. Anyone who has ever received healthcare or been with someone who received healthcare knows that nurses are the backbone of it all. As if all they do are bedpans. Get out, OP, before she is your mother-in-law. Yeah, depending on the relationship that OP has with her boyfriend, whether or not that's like worth working through all of this, it could be that it is best to cut those losses. Good for you. His mom sounds like a jerk. Are you overreacting? No, because I would have said much worse if she spoke to me like that. And also, it would bother me me if my partner did not stand up for me, even with his parents. Not overreacting. Nursing is a highly skilled job, which requires you to be present, unlike a lot of other corporate jobs. Plus, the pay is good. Not something to throw in their faces, just to give you some affirmation. This mom is maybe taking out her own lackluster life on you. I'd have a serious chat with your boyfriend, and if you see this progressing, talk to him about how he needs to stand up for you too. OP said, I think that you're right. It's been coming to that point for a while now. Yeah, that's definitely worth a pretty direct conversation with your partner. We don't know much about the relationship in this one. We don't know if there's any other signs of her boyfriend not prioritizing her, so it might just be a thing where he's blinded because it's his own mother. It's definitely not old-fashioned though. If anything, it's the opposite. I feel like us women get judged by other women if we choose family over career or choose jobs that aren't higher up. Your mother-in-law sounds very rude. I mean, we get judged for everything. Oh, you're a stay-at-home mom? Must be nice. Oh, you're going back to work? Isn't it so hard to leave your baby? Oh, you have a shitty retail job? Well, I guess everyone has to start somewhere when you're over 30. Oh, you have a great lucrative job? That must take so much time away from your family. We really can't win. Sure, men get judged for things, but we literally get judgment no matter what we do. Yeah, that's a great point because this mother-in-law said something like, oh, it's so funny how girls these days waste their potential. It's like you have an idea in your head of what women should be, and then you need every single woman to meet that standard. Why can't we just all be different and have our own place in our lives and in society? Silly. Not overreacting. You handled it great, especially considering the length of time she's been dismissive. What did she do for a career? Or was she just a baby factory? Wow, I really hate that phrase. Like we were just discussing, can we not shame women for their choices, whether they are inside or outside the home, whether they're as mothers or career women or whatever the F they individually are? Baby factory, get out of here. OP said she worked at several different gas stations over the years. There's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just interesting. It is really strange to then be casting stones about having a prestigious enough job. I feel like what happened is that her daughter got this prestigious job and the mother identified with it so much and was living vicariously through her daughter so much that she set it as her new standard. Definitely not overreacting, but like others have said, you need to have a conversation with that boyfriend. Am I overreacting? My mom ate my cake. Today is my birthday. I celebrated yesterday with my parents and my partner since I'm working all day today. My mom bought me a Yule log as a birthday cake, which is what I always ask for. Since there are only 4 of us, there was a slice left over. As soon as I ate it, I had to leave straight for work, and my father, who doesn't live with my mother, wanted to come with me. So we left the house a bit rushed, and I worked all afternoon. She said that there was very little left, and when I told her I didn't mind, that I just wanted a slice, she said that I'd be depriving her of dessert. It was a comment that really bothered me because even though she bought it, it's my birthday cake and I just wanted to be able to have a slice today, however small. She ate half of it last night, which is why there was so little left today. She assumed my partner would have bought me another cake. We celebrated with my in-laws a few days ago and he bought dinner for everyone and 2 cakes. I told her that yes, I have a special dinner planned at home, but we're not going to buy a cake just for the 2 of us. Besides, Christmas is coming up soon and we'll already be eating plenty. I just wanted a small slice because it was my birthday. The fact that she ate half of it and then told me I left her without dessert annoyed me. Am I overreacting? Let me tell you, it never fails to amaze me how entitled people can be with their parents. This is, I'm assuming, an adult talking about their 3rd birthday cake that their mother bought for them to enjoy at the mother's house, and OP's upset that the mom didn't save the leftovers for them. Edit for more context. I know that I should have taken the leftovers if I wanted them, but I went straight to work and I can't take refrigerated food. I'm not angry with her for eating a piece of the leftovers, not at all. What bothered me more was the message where she just said, well, then you're leaving me without dessert. Yes, I'm an adult and I can buy all the cakes I want, but I simply wanted to use that piece so I wouldn't have to buy more just to use it up. Maybe I sound childish for wanting that piece of cake, but her comment doesn't sound very mature to me either, especially since yesterday my aunt gave me a whole panettone as a birthday gift and my mother asked me to leave it at her house so she could have some too. And there was no problem. She's my mother, we share everything, and we get along well, and I love her very much. It's just that her comment really left me feeling awkward and upset. but thanks for all the comments. All right, OP admits that they are an adult who can buy their own cake. Your mom clearly said she wanted to eat that last piece of cake. So you just wanting to have that last one to use it up so you don't have to buy more does not apply when somebody else who actually bought the cake wants to eat it. I feel like some of this is like birthday entitlement, like, oh, I should get everything because it's my birthday. And that's just like magnified when it's somebody's parents. Your parents are totally responsible for keeping you alive, getting you through life, and getting you kind of launched into adulthood. They are not responsible for perpetually putting all of your wants before their own. You're overreacting. Fun fact, there is no rule about only having cake on your birthday. Based on the details you've shared, it sounds like you're of adult age with adult money. You're mad that your mom ate the rest of your third birthday cake. You live next door but didn't take the cake with you in the first place. You found out she ate it and got upset enough to bicker with her, but not enough to go get some cake for both of you. I mean, she gave birth today, buy her a cake. Your reaction and her weird guilt trip leads me to believe that this isn't just about the cake. You're overreacting because you don't live together. If you did and you left the cake in the fridge where you live, then I'd say it's yours. As you left it at her house in her fridge and went home, I'd say it's hers. Yeah, it was probably pretty tempting just sitting there. Let the cake go. Next year, get your own cake and don't share. You're overreacting. It was one slice of cake, and I would assume that if you wanted it, you'd take it with you. No one buys birthday cakes in my family, so I guess I have nothing to compare it to, but I know that if there is cake around, it will get eaten. Just go buy another Yule log and enjoy it all over again. Not overreacting. It is annoying. Next time, take the cake with you when you leave. I'd run to a bakery and buy a small cake for you and hubby to share. If you don't want to eat it all, maybe freeze some. Yeah, I guess the "you'd be leaving me without dessert" comment is a little bit frustrating. A little bit of like a weird guilt trip. Maybe mom should have come right out and said, actually, I really wanted this piece. Could you just get another one? I still can barely wrap my brain around the fact that this is your third birthday cake and you're upset. And as you said, you're an adult with adult money who could just go buy another cake. Am I overreacting? Wife and I were stuck at the overflow table at my parents' house on Thanksgiving. Hey everyone, first time posting. Something happened on Thanksgiving that annoyed me but didn't bother my wife. We went to my mom and dad's house this Thanksgiving. We have a good relationship with my mom and dad. We see them often, along with my wife's side. We are fortunate enough that both sides of the family live within 45 minutes of each other, with us in the center. Anyway, this year my mom and dad invited a ton of friends to Thanksgiving, which is cool, I don't care. But what happened is all the friends of theirs ended up eating at the main table, which seats about 12. My wife and I were relegated to an overflow table in another room by ourselves. So while everyone is chatting it up, catching up, having conversations with each other, we sat alone together. And don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my time with my wife. We talked together and had a good time. I didn't say anything about it to my parents at the time, but my wife asked me about it when we got home, and I confessed to being a little hurt. She said it wasn't a big deal, and it really isn't in the long run, but I think I'm justified in being a little bit hurt and annoyed by being left out. So what say you all? Edit. I just want to make it clear, I don't care about actually sitting at the main table. What bothered me was being placed in a separate room alone while everybody else dined together. I was going to use the results of this to gauge whether I should bring it up and let them know how I really feel about it. I wasn't sure if it was that big of a deal to other people. Yeah, that is a huge like hosting faux pas. You would never usually want some of your guests to be completely by themselves in a separate room, and you'd think as the hosts you'd notice that. I guess they must have just been so busy with their friends, but that is really strange that it worked out that way. I wonder what the layout of this house was, if there was any way to bring that table into the main room. That sounds so uncomfortable. I would hate that. If it were me, I'd be like, why are we here? We have dinner together every night. If the overflow table only had 2 people, they couldn't have squeezed 2 more chairs into their table or put more people at the overflow table so that you and the wife weren't singled out. Then you could have at least visited with others. Yeah, exactly. As a host, you should be making sure that it's never just like 2 people who already came together completely isolated by themselves. Or put more people at the overflow table so you and the wife weren't singled out. This is the answer. My mom has a table that can seat 10 when it's pulled all the way out, and she had 12 people at Thanksgiving. So she left the table pushed in and put a folding table out. 8 at the main table and 4 at the folding table in the next room. Yeah, that definitely would have been the more graceful approach to take if you were gonna have too many guests to see at that main table. Not overreacting. To me, that defeats the purpose of going, which is spending time with the hosts. I can sit and talk to my spouse alone at my house. Exactly. You know, obviously not that there's anything wrong with having dinner with just your spouse, but it's the fact that you can do that anywhere. Not overreacting. When I was 24 and my sister was 18, we had Thanksgiving at my aunt's house. My sister and I were relegated to the kitchen at the kids' table while everyone else was in the dining room. At one point during the meal, my aunt turned off the kitchen light because the glare was distracting. We sat in the dark for a moment, contemplating our choices. We got up and left through the kitchen door and went to a movie. No one noticed we were gone until it was time for dessert. We never attended another holiday at our aunt's house. In my opinion, it's rude to separate guests like that. That is so rude. Oh my gosh. Great way that this commenter and her sister were able to respond. It's again, especially those cases where you're just excluding certain guests. I think it comes off really not feeling good. Not overreacting. I get it, it's not that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things, but come on, I'd feel a little hurt too. Who invites a bunch of friends over and sits their child in another room? They probably just didn't want to seat their friends there, but still, poor planning for seating on their part, and I'd make sure my kid was at my side. You're not wrong to feel a little hurt/annoyed. I was thinking that too, that they probably just knew that that wasn't a great spot. And as their child, they may just feel closer to you and therefore they don't really have to be as polite. In another room just by yourselves, I would genuinely ask your parents, why did I even bother to come this year? OP says that's actually what I mumbled to my wife. Yeah, that's gotta have been an awful feeling. And it sucks that like this already happened. There's nothing you can do about it now other than like have the conversation and be like, I really don't want that to happen in the future. Maybe it'll help to hear your parents say like that they just weren't thinking about it or whatever. But in some ways the damage is already done. Am I overreacting? My husband's sister doesn't want to get a job. My husband and I, both 27 years old, just got married. His sister is 9 years older than us, so she's 36 years old. So starting from the beginning of our relationship, we've been together for nearly a decade now. His sister had graduated college and was working a job that pertained to her degree. She worked there for about 2 years while both of us were going off to college to get our degrees for our future professions. She had apparently been saving up while working there so that she could take a year off to travel, which is great. Happy for her, no problem. So she quit her job, went and traveled the world for a year. She finally came back after that year of traveling. I'm assuming the plan was to come back, get a job, and continue on with her life. Well, when she came back, she had a change of heart. She wasn't done traveling. Okay, guess that's fine. Probably a little risky, but whatever makes her happy, that's fine with me. Shouldn't affect my life in any way. So she decides she's gonna go live in Australia and travel around there for a while. With her, she never really has a solid plan, so this trip to Australia ended up being her living there for the next 4 years or so. While there, she worked various odd jobs like working on the farm and being a waitress, etc. As you can imagine, they did not pay her enough to comfortably live on. She realized that life was not sustainable and ended up coming back to the US. After coming back to the US, she started to repeat this weird cycle where she would stay with her mom or me and my husband rent-free for weeks to months. Okay, this whole time I've been like, why is this relevant to OP? Now I see why. That seems like maybe the problem. Either with no job/income or working at a yoga studio where she would make hardly any money. Mind you, their mom hardly makes enough to sustain herself, let alone her 36-year-old daughter. After staying with her mom or us, she will then either say she needs a vacation and will go travel to various countries or US states, or she will say she got a seasonal job that lasts maybe 3 months at some resort/retreat somewhere in the US. And she just keeps repeating this same cycle over and over again. I also forgot to mention that whenever she comes to visit us and stays with her mom rent-free, she makes her mom buy her whole food groceries because she can only eat organic, natural groceries. After Australia, she became some naturalist/hippie for some reason. All that to say, she is now in mountains of credit card debt from all the traveling and hardly working over the past decade. Am I overreacting that this whole situation rubs me the wrong way? I just feel like when she says she is visiting, it is only because she needs a place to stay rent-free until she figures out what else she wants to do. And it's not genuine. I mean, wouldn't we all just love to quit our jobs and travel the world? Yes, but as adults, we have to work for a living. Am I overreacting? It sounds like the problem and the place where you can set boundaries is about her coming to stay with you rent-free. You guys don't have to be allowing her to do that. And if you're not comfortable with it, I would talk to your husband about it. Talk about the fact that she could pay some rent if she's going to come to stay with you guys for an extended period of time. The rest of it is kind of just none of your business. And it sounds like there's some other biases coming up about that kind of a lifestyle where people are really into eating well and doing yoga and that kind of thing. It goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that there's no wrong way to make a living, but you do actually have to be making enough of a living. It's not great that the sister is freeloading off of her mom, who is already barely making ends meet. That's kind of outside of OP's control. OP can discuss with their husband the fact that they don't want to be funding her lifestyle anymore, and they can always talk to the husband's mom about it, but ultimately that's her decision, what she's going to put up with and what boundaries she's willing to set with the husband's sister. So other than maybe expressing your concerns there once, that just doesn't end up really being up to you. I don't know if I'd call it overreacting, but all you have to do is step out of the situation. She doesn't get to stay with, leech off you when she returns from her latest travel adventure. It's her life to live as she sees fit, but it's not yours or anybody else's responsibility to support her when she reappears from her latest travels. Exactly. Apparently she hasn't learned that hard lesson that she needs to budget out enough so that she can live in between these travel adventures, and she's gonna have to learn that by her family members not funding her poor choices. Agree, not overreacting, except it's not your business. Step out of paying for anything for her or letting her stay. She sounds like a moocher, but she can choose that life if she wants. If your husband keeps letting her stay or gives her money, that's where you might have a problem. This really just sounds like a conversation that needs to happen with the husband about what kind of support or assistance we are and are not going to give his sister. You don't mention your husband's feelings or thoughts, so it sounds as if only you are bothered. From personal experience, it's often risky for the spouse to criticize what her partner/in-laws do. However, this does negatively affect you. One possibility is to require, with your husband 100% on board and actively attending, and their mom should be invited as well, your sister-in-law to attend family therapy. I don't know if that's really necessary or helpful in this case. I mean, if OP struggles to communicate with her husband about setting boundaries with the sister, then they might be appropriate for couples therapy. Of course, you can open up family therapy with anyone you want to, but that is not always a realistic thing to jump to, especially with a sibling that's living a completely separate life who just pops back up every few years or whatever it is. Honestly, that seems like a very random suggestion to me. If she chooses not to, then she finds other ways to supplement her income, because mooching off people for a bed and food, what the hell, is exactly that, supplementing her income. Yeah, just skip the family therapy suggestion and go straight to that. OP is clearly not comfortable with the situation as it is now, so I think it's reasonable to discuss not helping the sister out in that way. There are traveling jobs all over the world, and they offer a good income, often food and sleeping arrangements, such as cruise lines. Yeah, that's a good point. There are all kinds of jobs that the sister could get where she could actively travel and also make an income. And she figures out how to make enough to survive, like while she's living in other countries. So she just needs to have that same expectation on her when she's home. If I were OP, I'd stop letting her stay for the pure fact that the resentment is clearly building over it. Am I overreacting for snapping at my pregnant sister after she asked me to give her my car? I'm honestly not sure if I handled this badly or if I'm just being made to feel like I did. I'm 26 female, live alone, work full-time. I don't earn a huge amount, but I'm stable and careful with money. Last year, I finally bought myself a car after saving for years. It was a big deal to me because growing up, I never really had anything that was just mine. My sister is 32 and currently pregnant with her 4th child. She and her husband have always struggled financially and usually rely on my parents to help them out with things like rent, groceries, bills, basically everything. This has been going on for years. Last week, she called me crying, saying they're about to be evicted. I felt really bad for her and stayed on the phone trying to calm her down. I even looked up assistance programs and resources that might help them short term. Then she said that she needed my car. At first, I thought she meant borrowing it sometimes. She didn't. She meant I should give it to her permanently because she has kids and I don't, so I don't need it as much. She said I could use public transport or Uber since I only go to work and back anyway. I said no. After that, she got really upset and started saying that I don't understand real responsibility and that if something something happens to her baby because she can't get around, it would be on me. That really got to me. I'm sure you don't need me to tell you how manipulative that is. Unfortunately, this kind of thing is way more common than you would think in family systems. Some people, that is just how they survived so far, is they ask and ask and ask and push their limits and break relationships, but try to get their needs met. This sister has clearly learned that she can rely on everybody else to take care of her and her family, and has developed some really emotionally manipulative strategies for trying to force her way. You can't just demand things for your kids and then blame other people when they don't just give you things. Bizarre. Shortly after, my parents called and told me I should step up since I'm financially stable and family helps family. My mom even said I can always get another car later. That is so enabling to this sister. If her parents want to help her so bad, they can set up a loan to give her a couple $1,000s to get a clunker. The audacity of asking you to hand over a brand new car is just mind-blowing. That's when I snapped and said her poor planning and her baby are not my responsibility. I know that was harsh, but I felt cornered and emotionally pressured. Now my whole family is angry at me. My sister is posting vague things on Facebook about toxic people and fake family, and relatives I barely talk to are telling me that I'm cruel and selfish. Well, I can almost guarantee that they don't know the whole story, now do they? And your parents who do seem to know the whole story are too wrapped up in this system. You know, there's probably the emotions of being the grandparents to these 4 grandchildren that are skewing their perspective on this. It is ridiculous. I feel guilty about how I said it, but I also feel like the request itself was completely unreasonable. I don't know if I overreacted by snapping or if my reaction was understandable given the situation. Am I overreacting? Quote, after that, she got really upset and started saying I don't understand real responsibility. Obviously, she doesn't understand real responsibility if she has 3 kids and lacks the basic necessities to take care of them while actively being pregnant. You're not overreacting by giving her firm boundaries and not giving away your own car. If she was responsible, she wouldn't pop out 4 kids when they can't afford them. If they're being evicted, they obviously can't afford rent, much less 4 kids. Hey, let's have baby number 5. My parents will help pay the bills. Eye roll. I really don't like judging parents based off of like limited information like this. There's a lot of things that could be impacting this. What's their background? What's their culture? What's their access to family planning? It's sad that you have to think about money while you're planning your family to an extent, but if you do keep having kids when you can't financially afford to provide at least whatever the necessities are for where you live, and it sounds like OP's sister considers a car one of those necessities, you could be inadvertently doing those kiddos a disservice. Find a $2,000 or $3,000 car on Marketplace and then send payment requests to every single family member that said family helps family. If they complain, you can literally tell them it's only $300 and you thought they were offering to help family. Not overreacting. Yeah, especially because apparently they wanted you to hand over 20 grand or whatever your car costs. That is a really solid idea. Not the a-hole. Tell your family to stop being selfish and give your sister a vehicle since they're so ready to help. That's so true. If everyone in the family feels this way, why is it only OP's car that's up for grabs? Why doesn't somebody else offer up their car then? Not overreacting. This is such transactional love. I'm so sorry you're dealing with this. Good for you for standing up for yourself, and please know your value is not determined by making your family's lives easier for them. Don't give in because they will just keep asking for more and more. Your sister is not asking for help, she's asking you to let her avoid responsibility. That's the thing too, if you start to make these concessions, you'll never be able to have anything nice for yourself because other people in your family will just feel entitled to it. Not overreacting. Your family sounds garbage and I think it's time to go low, if not no contact with them for a while. Your sister and her husband, as it comes off to me, can't be asked to get their act together. Do they not have jobs? And take adult financial responsibility for the fact that they have 3 to 4 kids to provide for now. Your parents are enabling their dependency on others by paying for their bills, food, and rent, along with gaslighting you for not giving them your car. Like what? As for the other family members who are giving you a hard time for a situation they very likely don't know the full context of, what are they doing to help your sister financially if they care so much? I think I speak for all of us on this platform when I say, you're right. Her poor planning, life choices, and children are not your responsibility. They're hers and her husband's. If my sibling had the audacity to say that I don't understand real responsibility when refusing to give them my car solely because they have kids and I don't, I would have said, if you knew what real responsibility actually was, you and your spouse would be using protection until you could financially afford to have kids. How about instead of projecting your irresponsibility and lack of maturity as parents of 3 to 4 kids onto me, you and your spouse step the hell up and do the work necessary to provide for you and your kids instead of expecting everyone else to do the adulting for you. The people criticizing OP are probably just thinking of the innocent children in this situation. It's so sad when the parent is making poor choices and it affects the children negatively, but that is nobody's fault or responsibility but the parents that are not stepping up. I mean, there could be systemic things impacting the situation, but on an individual level, it is only the parent's responsibility. Am I the a-hole for wanting to work from home without my in-laws? I have been fighting a boundary war with my mother-in-law since my child was born. Before my daughter was born, my mother-in-law offered to quit her job and be our full-time daycare. The pay she wanted was not something we could afford, so we expressed that it wouldn't work for us. She responded that it was not about the pay, but that she wanted to spend time with our daughter. She was not in a financial place to be able to quit working, however. The compromise was that she would babysit 1 day a week in our home. We offered to pay for the day, but she did not want to be paid. Well, the baby came and I took my 12 weeks of maternity leave. It was magical, exhausting, and really such an honor. We had to do fertility treatments to have our daughter, so every moment feels extra special. I had some struggles and I was diagnosed with postpartum OCD. There can be all kinds of mental health challenges that come up during that postpartum period. There's postpartum anxiety, postpartum psychosis, postpartum OCD, probably even more than that. So if you're coming up on a postpartum period or you know someone who is, just be supportive and on the lookout for any major changes in their mental health. This was found very quickly and I was able to get on medication that helps me to live a completely normal existence. Once my maternity time was up, the baby went to daycare Monday through Thursday and on Friday was cared for in our home by my in-laws. Please note that the baby can go to daycare on Fridays but does not, so that they have time to spend with their grandchild. I am a work from home employee. As all work from home employees know, this means that everyone you are related to thinks that you have endless free time and can work whenever you want. After all, there is no boss to yell at you if you are late, right? Well, my in-laws took this to mean that they could show up whenever, despite me giving them a specific time. They are consistently 30 minutes to 1 hour late, and then they want to ask questions or chat when they get here. That could definitely be a problem if you're planning things during that time, if you have meetings to attend, etc. They also quickly decided they needed to do housework while in my home. I originally asked that they not do that and just focus on babysitting. I expressed that cleaning is an activity I enjoy and like to do on the weekend. Specifically, I stated that I liked to do my own laundry. Wow, I couldn't relate to this less. I think a lot of us will take any help we can get with housework. They continued to do housework even after this request, stating it was not trouble at all. They make lots of noise vacuuming, loud music, and pots and pans banging. Mother-in-law loves to cook huge meals using every dish in the kitchen as a favor to us. Yeah, it does sound really likely that they are trying to be helpful for you. It's probably easy for them to assume that you're just being polite because it is so rare for someone to genuinely like doing household chores. Every person is so different in the way that they're gonna receive a gesture like this. I wonder how much the postpartum OCD is playing a role in this because it kind of sounds like OP's just stressed out by these things that are outside of her normal routine. Well, one day I walked down to grab my lunch and I found father-in-law folding my laundry, including my underwear, and mother-in-law cooking while the baby, walking age by this point, played on her own. While she was still being supervised, I was very annoyed that my boundaries were not being listened to and they were not focusing on the child that they were meant to be watching. Oh, sweetness. This is so normal though. They are probably just doing exactly what their friends are doing for their children, and I don't know the history of that kind of help, but I get the sense that this is a normal thing that's passed down generations, that's how you help after a baby's born. When my husband got home, I shared my continued woes with him and expressed that I did not think this arrangement was working. By this point, I was now seeing a psychologist at least weekly and was not sleeping from the stress of this scenario. He offered to use his leftover paternity leave to stay home on Fridays while they were there to train his parents. That is a great solution. I think it is a bit much to jump to the conclusion that this arrangement isn't going to work out at all, but clearly something has to change. Stronger boundaries need to be in place for OP's comfort. I love that the husband came up with this great idea. It's supportive of OP and her concerns, and it's a really smart solution to the problem. But the story's not over. I agreed that if he could get them to act in an acceptable form so I could get work done, that it was worth a try. I think family is very important, and it's never my wish to stand in the way of it. I just need to be able to get my work done. That solution did seem to help for a while, but as his paternity leave started to dwindle, so did my mental state. While things had improved, boundaries were still being pushed, and I still did not feel comfortable being able to work in the house. Things were often quite heated between my husband and I during that time. He argued that I wasn't seeing the value in family time and that it was saving us money. $40 a week. I argued that he wasn't valuing my mental health. We went round and round in circles, both of us unable to see the other's view. Finally, dear audience, I, with the help of my therapist, decided that I needed to figure out what I could control in the situation. Another great idea. I could control where I worked. So I found a co-working space in town that costs $100 a month. Please note that our savings from having in-laws watch our child is $160 a month. My husband and I split daycare costs. That means my share of it would have been $80 a month. So essentially, I am personally paying an extra $20 a month to have to leave my comfortable home office and drive across town. Not ideal, but other than this situation, my husband and I get along perfectly well. I figured $20 is a fair price to pay to keep the peace in my marriage. Yeah, that seems reasonable. If you want to, you could ask your husband if he would split it with you, but it does make sense that it's important to him that his parents are able to be involved in the caretaking of the child when they are passionate about it. So I'm glad that OP isn't overly digging her heels in, because I think there's always an adjustment period when you're taking care of a new child with your in-laws. You're gonna have to navigate those differences in caretaking styles. This arrangement has worked for a while. For the most part, I can work from my office with no problem. I'm gone by the time they get here, and I return at the end of my workday. I'd still be slightly annoyed when I would come home to my home rearranged or food I had planned to make already cooked another way, but I would keep the peace, and that was worth it. However, I only get so many hours of private office space, and I only have 2 screens instead of the 3 I have at home. Usually I can work with this, but I've been on a new project that requires both of these things. Today I received a text from my mother-in-law asking if she should come over at the normally scheduled time. She never makes it by that time, tomorrow. I texted her back to let her know it wouldn't work out for her to babysit tomorrow, after checking with husband to confirm that that was okay. Please note, I have done this before when one of us had a doctor's appointment or a day off on a Friday. My therapist has me working on not over-explaining my actions, so I kept it vague with the phrasing "it doesn't work" without a specific explanation. She proceeded to call me. I answered. We covered a few major points during this call. 1, I expressed that it is hard for me to focus on work with my daughter home and that I have a lot to get done this week. 2, she cannot take my daughter elsewhere to babysit her. While we often drop her off at their house and don't have an issue with her being watched somewhere safe, we don't like her out on the road with other people. Because really, why does she need to be? Their home is much farther away than daycare, so driving him there isn't a reasonable solution. 3, my husband will be gone this weekend and I have other plans. My plans were near her home, so I said if it worked out, we would stop over, or if it didn't, we could all go grab dinner together next week. 4, we passed recipes back and forth. This is something we do to bond with each other as we both love food. I felt this was good as it seemed to get us both in good spirits. I was super happy that I was able to find a way to communicate my need for a calm work environment and figure out how to still have family time. Again, what I felt was a good compromise. 30 minutes later, I got a text from my husband saying his mom called him devastated. In her words, she had been banned from watching our daughter ever again and complained that she wasn't allowed to drive her. She also said that I stated I was too busy to see her over the next week. She expressed to him that I was taking her light, my daughter, away. Oh, brother. That mother probably should have sat on those feelings a little bit longer before she ran to call her son and stir up a bunch of drama. I, quite frankly, lost my mind. I told my husband that his mother needs to learn to respect boundaries and that all of this is getting out of hand. That I did not say any of those things to her and that this is basically a tantrum because she did not get her way. But even if I had, why would she try to get him and I to get into a disagreement over it? His mother has requested a family meeting to discuss the scenario, and there's a strong possibility that I will not be be able to remain calm any longer. So before this meeting, I need to ask, am I the a-hole? Definitely not an a-hole. There's a lot going on in this story. Some of the expectations OP has about the childcare are extremely rigid. Everybody has different comfort levels when it comes to their kids, and especially if you're a new mom. But it is really strange to not allow your in-laws to drive with the baby in the car. And to me, if I were them or if I were the husband, I would kind of feel like you were putting up barriers to them watching your child. So the problem is that there's too much noise and distraction when you're working from home with them all there. Okay, but you also won't allow them to transport your child to their house. I wish I knew how old OP's infant was. I want to know where they are in that postpartum period, because it's such an upheaval of hormones and emotions and everything. All of that being said, her reaction of calling the husband and relaying something totally different than your experience in your conversation with her, that's a huge red flag. I would be very upset that she didn't continue that conversation directly with me. It feels two-faced, you know? Like, don't act like everything's fine with me and then complain to my husband about me. Not the a-hole. Your kid, your rules. That being said, mother-in-law isn't listening to you. Hubby needs to bluntly tell mother-in-law that if she continues to ignore the household rules and lie to him, she will lose access to her light. Hubby needs to deny the family meeting and tell mother-in-law that you have his full support. I think it's fine to go to the family meeting, but at the family meeting, you should have his full support. OP and husband should sit down and talk this through beforehand so that they're on the same page. They can kind of present a united front. You have an in-law problem and a husband problem. Your husband needs to have your back on this. If this is causing your mental health to deteriorate, he needs to stop his parents from coming over every week. It is not sustainable for your peace of mind. Also, I'd say that if you do choose to do this family meeting, put your phone on record. Heck, you can even tell her, since you blatantly lied about our phone call, all future calls/talking moving forward need to be recorded. I won't do this she said BS. A lie is a lie. There doesn't need to be a family meeting because your decisions regarding your daughter's care don't concern her. It is not up to her how often she sees your daughter. These people should absolutely not be watching your daughter anymore. They magically overstep, don't listen to you, lie to your husband, and run roughshod over your boundaries, not to mention them interrupting your work and showing up late. You need to end this arrangement, and your husband needs to get the F on your side. Not the a-hole, and after that BS his mom pulled, I sure as wouldn't be taking my daughter over there while he's gone. Solution: send your daughter to daycare all 5 days of the week. Have your in-laws come once or twice during the week evenings and on the weekend as you'd prefer. This way you can get your workday done as needed. In the evening, you can do the chores you like to do so it's not all piled up for the weekend, and you can cook the dinner you wanted to cook. They can either eat what you cooked or not eat at all. Your husband will also be available during all of these visits to entertain them accordingly and be out of your way. In the evening, when her mother-in-law, who lied to try to wreck her marriage, is over, her husband should pay for her to go out to dinner alone or with friends, and while he supervises visitation between his untrustworthy mother and his child. OP should not have to be there with a woman who makes up vile lies about her. We can clearly see Reddit jumping to extremes. No surprise there. This is the problem. If you go to Reddit for advice, a lot of times they will just radicalize the perspective that you came in with. These responses are way too intense for me. You've been too accommodating. The idea that you should be forced from your own house so they can play happy families with your daughter is ridiculous. If I were you, I'd go to that family meeting and tell them that the baby will be going to daycare 5 days a week and you'll be working from home fully now. Make sure your husband knows that this is a you must back me situation. No backing down, no apologies. Because this is the time to do it or she'll be turning your child against you. Not the a-hole. I don't think that we should be judging the grandparents purely from that very emotional overreaction when the mom called the husband. That wasn't okay, and OP can state some very clear boundaries about that, but the way that they are being vilified in the comments and people foaming at the mouth to remove the grandchild from their care when all the evidence makes it sound like they have genuinely had OP and her husband's best interests at heart, it's a bit much for me. I don't see any reason to assume that they're going to be using the child against OP. This may have just been a miscommunication. Talk it through with the husband, go to the family meeting, set some clear expectations and boundaries. Be really explicit about the housework and the cooking if you want. Again, a lot of new parents would take that as a gift, so they may really need it reiterated that you actually don't want them to do those things. Quote, I quite frankly lost my mind. I told my husband that his mother needs to learn to respect boundaries and that all of this is getting out of hand. That I did not say any of those things to her and that this is basically a tantrum because she did not get her way. But even if I had, why would she try to get him and I into a disagreement over it? And what happened? What did your husband do after hearing you say that? You omitted the most important part. OP says, sorry, my first time posting and I felt like I wrote an essay. He agrees with me that her reaction was over the top. However, he grew up with her over-the-top reactions, so it doesn't faze him as it would the average person. He assumes that she misunderstood me and is jumping to conclusions. This is possible as she dramatizes things. He supports me when talking to her, but wants to hear her out at the family meeting. Fingers crossed I keep a level head. Your husband is really the only issue here. If he supported you in the first place, you wouldn't be paying extra money to not work from home just to avoid his parents overstepping and being intrusive. It would be a cold day in hell when I actually paid to inconvenience myself to accommodate his mother. What the actual fuck? So the husband is really the only issue here for wanting his parents to watch his kid one day a week. That's his kid too, and these are his parents. I get that there are problems and those problems need to be addressed, but people are so black or white with it. And I feel like there is a trend of this black or white thinking having a real negative impact on families. They're not doing things that are harmful to the child. They're just stepping on OP's toes a little bit. Listen, from my perspective, it is better to have the mindset that it takes a village to raise a child than the hyper-individualized Western concept of just a nuclear family and they make all the decisions and they do all of the childcare. I think it is better for your kid to have more people who love them and care about them. And if you have to find a little bit of flexibility to allow that to happen, the benefits far outweigh the costs. So I am at odds with these comments. There should be no family meeting. His parents are not your daughter's parents. You are. And you have bent over backwards to accommodate them, much more than most people would. Now his mommy is having a tantrum and literally lying to him about what transpired because she's pissed you aren't giving her what she wants. How people deal with family like this when the only thing that really needs to be said is no, I will never understand. You never should have given her that day in the first place. It solved nothing. It made everything worse. It gave her a sense of entitlement, and now she's crying crocodile tears about how mean you are. And her son has no spine, so when she breaks those tears out at the family meeting, that shouldn't even be happening, we all know he will cave to mommy. I wish you much luck because you will need it. You should keep in mind that just because someone is family doesn't mean you are required to kiss their ass and do whatever they want. Oh my gosh, a lot of assumptions, huh? I think there's a lot of people projecting their own experience with their in-laws in the comments. I would go to the family meeting and tell her, since you went out of your way to blatantly lie about what was said and try to play the victim, I no longer feel that you are a safe person to take care of our daughter. Because if you can so easily lie and fabricate a story like that, God knows what else you will lie about when it comes to the safety of my child. From now on, you are more than welcome to see her under supervision at a time that works for us. This will be effective until further notice when we have built trust and I know you can respect boundaries. I have gone above and beyond to accommodate you, and this is a slap in the face. So since you decided to make up that little story, I am actually going to go ahead and observe it to make it true. When we think that we can trust you again to be around our daughter on your own and you can follow boundaries, we will call another family meeting. That is so dramatic. You could really give her a chance to explain why she heard that conversation the way she did. Unless there's been like a long history of this, unless this is a pattern that you've noticed, I don't think there's any reason to assume that she was trying to be very malicious and trying to tear your relationship apart or whatever else these comments are saying. You can be gracious while still having strong boundaries. You can still communicate assertively while assuming the best out of your husband's parents. As for your husband, ask him to have a few couples counseling sessions with you. If he is not willing and he's going to give you a hard time, tell him, we tried it your way and it didn't work out, so we are going to try it my way. We are a team. I supported and compromised for you, and it's your turn. Deal with your family or I will continue to do it for you. I am simply tired of compromising my mental health for the sake of making your family happy. Our daughter comes first, then my mental health and my physical health come after because I need to take care of my child first and foremost, and I need to be healthy to do that. And then our marriage. Now it's your turn to support me. So do that. Please talk to your therapist and then your husband about this before you meet up with her. And I suspect that you may need to be direct with your husband. Your mother lied about me to you. She's now interfering with our relationship. You have a choice. Believe me, the person who has bent over backwards to accommodate your parents to the point that I'm actually renting an office so they can take over our home to do chores that I want to do. Or believe her, a person who has never respected our requests or the rules when it comes to our daughter. She's driven me out of my home, and now she's trying to drive you out of our marriage, apparently, by making up lies about how mean I am. Give me a break. Call me naive, but I really don't think that that is a fair assumption about what the mother was doing with that phone call. Was it inappropriate and overly emotional? Yes, but this idea that has taken off in the comments that she's trying to break up the marriage is just, from now on, your husband should be figuring it out. On Fridays, he drives your daughter to their house if they want her for the day, or she goes to daycare that you're already paying for, and he can figure out when your daughter spends time with the grandparents. Every other Saturday with the grandparents or something. Yes, it reduces their time by half, but they won't be busy doing your household chores. And I'd point out that their time would be cut in half if your marriage breaks down anyway. That's a great solution. Why not have the husband drive the baby to their house? Because while OP says, oh, they're further from daycare, so it's not a reasonable solution, that's totally leaving out the relationship building part of it. I personally think we need to prioritize these relationships a lot more. Yes, be firm about our boundaries and really reiterate them, insist that they're respected, but I feel like OP isn't really appreciating the value of having a strong family unit and having lots of support for her kid. And I think that that's a huge disservice for kids too. Not everything has to be done 100% the way that you would do it. In fact, it's great to be able to resolve conflicts and make compromises and figure things out. It would probably be uncomfortable to have to keep setting that strong boundary. Like, if you really are unhappy that the mother-in-law is cooking for you, telling her every time instead of saying thank you, saying I actually really don't want you to do that, it's uncomfortable. So a lot of the time people don't set such clear boundaries, which can leave a lot lost in translation. But it's a lot worse to get to this point when you're so agitated and resentful. I would try to talk it out a lot more with your husband, maybe journal about it a little to get some of your thoughts and feelings sorted, and really try to hear his side and why it's important to him that his parents are involved. Yes, OP's the mother, and that's a very important role in the child's life, but her husband's the father. That's also really important. Also deserves to have his requests and desires acknowledged in the relationship. Unless there's something really harmful or going on, I don't think it's right to try to force someone not to include their parents in your child's life. And I honestly am struggling to see why it is so stressful for OP. It makes me think that there might be a lot more going on with that postpartum OCD that has yet to be addressed. For example, if you're hearing the vacuum running while you're working from home, is that really that big of a deal? But if this is something she can't stop obsessing about and focusing on, then that kind of makes sense. There just might be other ways to help with those symptoms. That is all for today. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe and I'll see you next time.